You're watching YouTube, the cable access of the 21st century. It's Wednesday, it's 4 p.m. where I am, and it's time to talk about movies and answer your questions. Welcome to Dan's World. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Dan's World. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Always the two questions that are at the forefront of my mind. Today, we are going to talk about the reviews for Michael. They came in yesterday. I traveled, saw the movie early, got my review out right at the embargo. So I didn't even have a hint of what other people might think before my review came out. And I got to be honest, the reviews were even worse than I kind of anticipated. I was expecting maybe middling reviews. Mine was somewhat middling, but they were more negative than I thought that they'd be. And I want to go into some of those, and also talk about whether that's going to have any effect on the box office at all. Does it even matter that the reviews are bad? I also am going to talk about a legal case that is currently happening down in Australia involving a Hollywood celebrity that you might not be aware of. It is one of the kookiest, weirdest cases that I've seen in a long time, and it connects to another high-profile case that has gotten a lot of ink here in the U.S. And of course, we're going to take your questions. If you want to leave your questions down in the comments below, you can do that. I'm going to take a quick look at the comments here just to make sure. Yes, you can see me. Yes, good. Everyone can see me. Everyone can hear me. That's great. You can leave your comments or your questions in the comments below or on the side or wherever comments are for you. I try to get through those as best I can during the show, but if you definitely want to make sure that I answer your question, you can leave me a super chat. I go through all of the super chats on every live show. I will say right up top, people say I need to make a banner to put this on screen for the whole show. Please, no ranking questions, just because they're very difficult for me to do on the spot. And I like to kind of keep the show moving. I don't want to have most of the show be you watching me sit here and think of things, because I wish that I was better at that on the fly. It's not really where my strength lies. Putting my phone on the ground there. This, by the way, I should note, yesterday was Monday, I guess, was the 6th anniversary of launching this channel. Believe it or not, I've been doing this now for 6 years and 2 days solo. It's crazy to think about that it's been 6 years. I mean, we're almost approaching a couple more years. I'll have been doing this as long as I was at Screen Junkies, which is going to be a really weird barrier to break. But we just passed the 6-year anniversary of the channel. So thank you to everybody who's been here since day one. And thank you to everybody who's been here since yesterday or today. I appreciate you being here. So let's jump into the first story I want to talk about today. And those are the reviews for Michael. Of course, the Michael Jackson biopic is the big release this weekend. The review embargo lifted yesterday morning, and reviews so far have not been great from the first round of critics. We're at about 120 reviews. Right now, it's got a 35% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 4.9 average rating, which, by the way, I'm kind of glad that that's a little more accessible on the Rotten Tomatoes site. Actually, I should say that's for my extension. So my extension that I have installed has it at a 4.9 out of 10. Both of those numbers are a little bit lower. I was expecting maybe like a 50-50 split, but people have been more negative on the movie than I anticipated. And as I say, even if reviews had been published before I do my review, I don't read reviews before I see a movie, because I want my thoughts to be completely separate and divorced from what anyone else might have thought. But I will, after I put out a review, often go back and look at other reviews and just to see what they say. I like to read what other critics say. Sometimes they'll bring up a point I didn't think about, or I'll read something and I'll say, well, I think that's way off base. And reading the reviews that came in, I didn't read all of them, but looking at the blurbs, etc. One thing I was really struck by is that I think with when it comes to Michael Jackson in general, there seem to be three camps, really. There are Michael Jackson fans who absolutely adore him and worship him, and they believe that he is still the greatest pop star ever to live. And when it comes to all of the allegations and everything, they're all untrue. He was unjustly, put on trial by the media, by the FBI, by the government, and nothing ever stuck. And he's completely innocent. And they are enthusiastic and ecstatic about this movie because there are no mixed feelings whatsoever. There's another camp, which is the exact opposite. He's guilty of everything. He shouldn't be celebrated. this is a whitewashing of his legacy. It's a despicable movie, and it shouldn't be seen by anybody. And they're vocal as well. And then there's a lot of people that are kind of in the middle. They may skew one way or the other, but they may either believe the allegations, but also recognize that he was a great artist, or they might think that some of them are true, or some of them are not. They might not know what to think. And I think when it comes to this movie, if we talk about the effect on the box office, those are the people that are really going to decide how well the movie does. I think the people that absolutely love Michael Jackson will be there. They'll be there every day for a week. They're going to see it over and over again because it's exactly the kind of movie, as I said in my review, that feels like it was made especially for that group, because it is a celebration of his music and everything. Anything that was not even talking about allegations and stuff, anything in his life that was really negative is present, but there's no exploration really of it. It's a celebration of his music and all that, and what he overcame and all that stuff. And then the people that hate Michael Jackson, I can't imagine they would go to the movie because they wouldn't want to support it. So you have kind of a locked in group of people that are definitely already were going to go, and a locked in group of people that definitely were never going to go. And then it's that middle. And honestly, I think it's the kind of movie that is going to win over more people in the middle than it's not going to win over, because Michael Jackson did make great music. And the movie is, as I said in my review, kind of a way to celebrate the greatness of his career, particularly into the 80s, without having to even think about the other stuff. A lot of people have a problem with that, and I understand people that have a problem with that. But I think that it's going to win over more people, and I don't necessarily think that. Whoa, hello, sorry about that. I don't necessarily think that those people are going to be affected by the reviews. Michael Jackson as a concept and Michael the movie, I think, it's almost like an Avengers film. I think it's kind of review proof. I don't see a whole lot of people saying, "Well, I was going to go see the Michael Jackson movie, but now." All the reviews just say it's full of great music and nothing else. So I don't think I'm going to go see it. I think they'll say it's full of great music. I'm still going to go see it. I think general audiences overall are really going to love this movie. And they're going to say critics don't know anything, as they always do. And as they always have. These critics are stupid. Don't listen to them. They're dumb, blah, 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 etc. I've heard it a million times before. But what was interesting to me with the reviews is it almost seemed like there were some of the reviewers that were as polarized about Michael Jackson, the movie, Michael the movie, as so many people are about Michael Jackson, because there were, I would say the majority of the reviews, positive or negative, are in the middle, more in the middle as far as critics around this movie, maybe than there are people about Michael Jackson, where it might be positive, but they'll say, yeah, it doesn't get that deep, but it's enjoyable to watch and the music's great. That's kind of where I fell. I was very in the middle on it, but I generally enjoyed the movie, while acknowledging that it gets way more complicated once we go past the timeline of this film, if they do make a second movie. Or a lot of the negative reviews were saying that they didn't like it for a lot of the reasons that I brought up in my review. That doesn't have anything to do with what happened post the events in this movie, but has to do with the movie itself, that it's shallow, that it lacks depth, that it takes a very complicated person, even in the 80s, 70s and 80s, and kind of scrubs those complications away, that it's bland, and I get those criticisms. I have a lot of those criticisms myself. But there was also a group of people that, and I'm not going to read all these blurbs, I'm going to put them up on screen, but there were also a group of people, these were quotes from some of the reviews, these were negative reviews for the movie, and they seemed to be negatively reviewing the movie, not necessarily based off of what was in this movie, but what wasn't in the movie, what the movie didn't include, or what the movie might include the next time. And it's not a majority of the reviews. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a majority of even the negative reviews, but it is I would say, substantial number of the reviews that were really giving the movie a negative review. Number one, because they didn't think the movie was great, but even more so because they have issues with what happens next. And that's where it gets into a bit of a thorny territory for me as a critic. Taking anything Michael Jackson related away from it, that's where I have kind of a problem as a critic. And I have respect for other critics. You will rarely hear me comment on another critic's opinion of a movie, because every movie is subjective. Art is subjective. And generally, even if completely disagree with a critic's opinion, I'm not going to go out there and say like, where they're wrong for saying that, or they're wrong for thinking that. But there were some reviews of Michael Jackson, or of Michael the movie, where I felt like the critics were reviewing Michael Jackson the person more than Michael the movie, and that to me is where we get into a bit of a dicey area, because I understand the question. I understand why you would have that question, as far as, listen, there were some things that he was accused of later in his life that are pretty heinous. And can you separate that from this movie? And what this movie covers is all before that. Largely, apparently, due to the reshoots. Apparently, that wasn't always the case. And I might have had a much different opinion of the movie, honestly, if it had taken the approach which the reports said it originally took. But the movie that exists covers a part of his life leading up to that point, but not to that point yet. And so I think that kind of raises an interesting question as a critic. When you're reviewing a film, what is your responsibility as a critic, as far as taking the real world into account and judging things outside of the film and criticizing the film in and of itself? And I think that the majority of negative reviews for the film are negatively reviewing the film in and of itself, not necessarily referring to anything outside, but to criticisms of the content and the nature of the movie itself. But there is a lot of criticism that kind of refers to that outside part, and I think that that's why it's just kind of a microcosm of why any conversation around Michael Jackson can be complicated, because there is such the opinions run the gamut in the real world. People that absolutely worship him and will hear no wrong about him, and people that are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And I knew going in that no matter what I thought of the movie, I was going to hear from one side or the other. It almost was like an MCU movie in that way as well. It's one of those movies that I knew going in, and you just have to absorb it as a critic. You just have to know, because the only way to avoid it is to not review the movie. I knew going in, seeing the movie, no matter what I think about this movie and no matter what I say about it, I'm going to hear from one side, or because I am who I am and I usually don't go to extremes, I've heard from both sides on this one. People who don't think that I should say anything good about it, and people who are angry that I said anything bad about it. As often is the case. It is odd how it sort of mirrors what I will get from a typical superhero film or a Marvel film. But that kind of fits Michael Jackson in a way, because he was to that level. I mean, he was an icon of that level, of an Iron Man, Captain America, Batman level. I mean, in pop culture, and I talked about it when I did the review, especially in the 80s and going into the 90s, he kind of was I mean, he was just like, there is no star now that can match how famous Michael Jackson was in the 80s and early 90s. You could, anyone I don't care, Taylor Swift, whoever. Taylor Swift is immensely popular, doesn't come close to Michael Jackson as far as crossing generations, gender, race, you name it. I can't think of anybody since Michael Jackson that's been able to do that. So it makes sense that the reaction to this movie about him is similar to what we see for people that sort of pledge their allegiance to Disney or Star Wars or Marvel or DC or whatever else, because that's kind of where we are. It's a fandom, really, at that point. And underneath all of that, there is a very human story and a very human man, and a man with flaws, um, a man with a troubled life, and that all kind of gets swept aside, and it sort of always has been swept aside. And I think that that's what we're seeing with the reviews for the film, with the discourse around the film. It's a continuation of the discussion around Michael Jackson that we've had for the last 30 plus years. And it will continue. I was reading today that they're Coleman Domingo and Neil Long are out there doing interviews saying like, yeah, there might be a sequel and maybe it'll deal with that, but that's not what this movie's about. And if this movie does incredibly well, I think that they probably will try to make a sequel, but I don't know. I don't know what direction they will go with it. It seems like any direction you go, you're going to infuriate one side of this debate or the other. Given that it's produced by the estate largely, it's I can guess it's going to be infuriating the people who think that he's guilty. But because you're going to have to take a side, you're going to have to take a stance. You can't just say this is about his legacy before all of that, which is kind of the line now. This is about the legacy before all that. You're then going to be getting into much thornier territory. So if they do decide to make a sequel, I think it's going to be somehow even more polarizing than this movie. And I'll be curious to see what the reaction is. But this film, it's an MCU movie. It's review proof, in my opinion. I'm not shocked that there were detractors to the movie. I knew that there probably were going to be going in. I am a little surprised by the overall negative response, but I think that there are also a lot of people that are out there saying that all of the reviews for the movie are bad because people have a problem with Michael Jackson, post 1993, and that's not fair either. Because I did read a lot of the reviews, and there are many of them that don't mention that only mention the artistic merits of this film in and of itself, about the sort of greatest hits approach, and the fact that there is so much psychological complexity to him that's not gone into, and that it is just really a celebration when there was an opportunity to do so much more. And what we got, to many people, and like I said, in many ways, including myself, I was very on the fence about the movie, trending positive, but on the fence. Um, that there was so much unexplored, and what we got was not that interesting beyond just hearing great music again. That those are a lot of the negative reviews. It's not all people that are out there trying to relitigate literal cases against Michael Jackson, but there's a lot of that as well. And so I've seen some people have asked me. I've seen some people say, "What do you think about the reviews? What do you think is going to hurt the box office?" Maybe a tiny bit, but again, the only people that the only group that it's going to hurt are the people that were maybe in the middle and legitimately trying to decide what to watch, whether or not to watch it. And I think that for maybe 85% of the audience, maybe more, that decision was made long ago, before reviews came out, and it will remain the same regardless of what the reviews say. I'm expecting it to do well this weekend. I think it's going to do very well this weekend. There's maybe, I'd say, a 10-15% chance that it underperforms, underdelivers for whatever reason. Biopic fatigue, or maybe the reviews have more of an effect than I'm anticipating. But I would be really surprised if it didn't do well, and if it didn't have good word of mouth, because the screening that I went to, the critic screening, was a screening of some critics and some people from the public, and I can tell you, I have ears and eyes. The people that were there, and I understand that if you're going early, you're probably more likely to be a big Michael Jackson fan, but they were very happy with the movie. They loved it. They thought it was fantastic. They thought it was great. They came out singing. They came out dancing, happy and applauding. And I mean, it was literally a crowd pleaser. So I would be surprised. I think that there are a lot of people that want to just go and celebrate Michael Jackson and maybe don't even want to think about all that other stuff. You can debate the merits of that and whether that's the best approach all day long, but that's just the truth of I think what the audience is looking for. And this debate, I think, is going to very much continue into, if there is a sequel. I mean, if you think we're having a discourse and a conversation now, just wait until they decide to make a second part, and then we're really going to be getting into it. But that's neither here nor there. And I don't necessarily think that discussion should be applied to this film when you are judging it as a critic for its artistic merits. I understand every critic is their own person, and to be honest, the ones that came flat out and said, I couldn't enjoy this movie because I couldn't put out of my head what came after it. I mean, I kind of applaud the fact that you're that open about it. I think that's preferable to just panning it and not openly saying that. But it gets into a really interesting discussion, I think, about film criticism in general, and what the role of a critic is, and what the metrics of a critic should be. And I think it just also underscores how different it can be for every critic. I mean, everybody's different. We all have our own subjective ways of viewing films. The one that I used was me saying, okay, I'm going to take this movie on its terms and judge it for what it's covering, the era it's covering, and what it includes in this movie. And then if we need to have that discussion on the next movie, we will absolutely have that discussion on the next movie. But it's complicated, and it always has been. And it's sad that it's complicated. It's sad for a number of people, a lot of people. But that's just kind of how it is. But yeah, if we think this is a discourse around the film now, boy, in a few years, if they make a second one, that's going to be something else. So yeah, generally though, will the reviews hurt the movie? Maybe a tiny bit, but I honestly don't think it's going to hurt it much. And I think even more so around the world, internationally, where this wasn't necessarily headline news every day, it's going to do even better. but we'll see. So those are my thoughts on the reviews for Michael. Next up, before I start taking your questions, I want to talk about, and I'm going to be going to my notes a lot here because this was something that I had seen a little bit here and there, but it really kind of popped into the headlines this week because there's a defamation trial that began this week in Australia. And I started seeing things daily, and I looked into it. I'm like, what is this exactly? And it is a nutty story. So I'm not going to go into full like blow by blow depth here, but in case you haven't heard about it, this is just something I think will be interesting to follow. Rebel Wilson, if you know Rebel Wilson, she was in Pitch Perfect and a lot of other movies. She directed a movie called The Deb, which wrapped in late 2023. It's her directorial debut. And there is now a defamation lawsuit happening in Australia involving Rebel Wilson, who directed the film, the star of the movie, Charlotte McGinnis, and one of the producers of the film, whose name is Amanda Ghost. And what it basically comes down to is that Rebel Wilson publicly claimed on her social media that Amanda Ghost, one of the producers of the film, sexually harassed Charlotte McGinnis, who was the star of the film, and said that the producers and Charlotte McGinnis herself had covered it up. Now, the producers claim that Rebel Wilson is retaliating because she wasn't given a shared writing credit on the movie, and that she also launched a smear campaign against Amanda Ghost and Charlotte McGinnis. And if the idea of the allegations of a smear campaign being launched sounds familiar, strap in, because it is closer to the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case than you could possibly imagine. So the incident in question, what it all boils down to is that prior to shooting the movie, shortly before shooting the movie, Charlotte McGinnis, the star of the film, was staying in Australia. And she was staying with Amanda Ghost, who was one of the producers of the movie, and everybody was in town to shoot and said, "You're here early to shoot the movie. Stay with me." They went swimming. I'm assuming in the ocean. It was done on Bondi Beach in Australia. The water in Australia is very cold. The two of them went swimming, and according to both Ghost and McGinnis, the producer, Ghost, suffered a medical reaction after swimming in the cold water. Basically, this sort of cold water anaphylaxis. It's almost like an allergic reaction to cold water. And she was having a physical reaction, breaking out in hives. McGinnis, the star of the movie, started a shower for Ghost, and then drew a bath for her. And nobody disputes that this happened. The two of them shared a bathtub, both wearing swimsuits. And the claim from the star and the producer of the movie was that this was to help her overcome this physical reaction that she was having. But Rebel Wilson claims that subsequent to that, Charlotte McGinnis said that this made her uncomfortable, that she viewed this as sort of not a producer type of the stuff that we see in Hollywood all the time. She said, "I wasn't comfortable with this situation." And Rebel Wilson eventually came out and said, "Yeah, well, the producer of the movie did this, and I was told that this was an uncomfortable situation, so I'm going to defend the star of my movie and expose this situation." Here's where it gets complicated. After Rebel Wilson came out and said this is what happened on the movie, and this was also, by the way, kind of subsequent to this dispute over the writing credit, McGinnis came out and said, "I never told her that. I never said that I was uncomfortable with that situation. I wasn't uncomfortable with that situation." And she's making that up because it wasn't a big deal. And Rebel Wilson responded and said, "Well, she's lying because she did tell me it made her uncomfortable, but that producer is now giving her work opportunities, and she's essentially being paid off. She's kind of slamming me publicly and saying that I made this story up because this producer actually did do this thing that made her uncomfortable, and now she's being paid off with job opportunities, and so she's recanting her story. But I'm going to still go out there and I'm going to expose this. And by the way, the producers weren't great. She accused them of embezzling money from the movie, not just Ghost, but the other producers in the film. They have said that that's not true, that it's based off of a fundamental misunderstanding of how budgets work, that they didn't steal any money. And they filed a defamation suit. Charlotte McGinnis filed a defamation suit against Rebel Wilson, basically for saying in public that she is a liar and that she recanted her story for money. And the producers also filed a defamation suit against Rebel Wilson, saying that she lied about this kind of sexual harassment situation, and she lied about them stealing money for the movie. So we've got a couple of defamation suits that are against Rebel Wilson from a couple of different parties. This is where, to me, it gets really interesting. So first of all, there were some texts that came out between Rebel Wilson and the producer, where Rebel Wilson says, "Oh, I talked to Charlotte about this bathtub thing, and she said it wasn't uncomfortable at all. It was just a super crazy situation." And the producer says, "Oh, thank God. I'm so glad because, yeah, it was crazy. I was having this reaction." And Rebel Wilson's like, "Yeah, no. It wasn't weird. She just said that it was a crazy situation." And Rebel Wilson has said, like, "Well, yeah, I didn't mean those. It's just that she was the producer on a movie that I was currently shooting, and she held the purse string. So I'm not going to try to start a situation. And so I was just sort of, saying that." That's kind of the one thing. This is where I think, all right. So in September 2024, there's a website. This was subsequent to, I believe, the first round of defamation suits being filed. In September 2024, there was a website launched called amandaghostsucks.com. And it accuses the producer, Amanda Ghost, of a lot of things. It calls her the, quote, Indian Ghislaine Maxwell. It says that she was basically a pimp who acquired women for rich men, that she was a failed music producer who ripped off her artists, and the site also encouraged other people to speak out against her with claims of harassment. It also claimed indirectly that McGinnis was covering up for Ghost in order to get money or fame. And in the middle of a defamation suit, and with Rebel Wilson already making these accusations, a lot of people said, well, where did this come from? Where did this website come from? Now, Rebel Wilson denied responsibility for the site. She said, I didn't have anything to do with that. When asked, I think 60 Minutes Australia talked to her, they asked about, well, do you remember telling your social media followers that they should go look at that site? Rebel Wilson said, no, I don't remember that. I don't remember doing that. So anyway, now let's get to the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni of it all. Rebel Wilson said she didn't know who was responsible for the site, that somebody might have been working unknown to her on her behalf in order to do it, and that maybe it was her lawyer or somebody on the team, but that she didn't have direct knowledge of it. Now, her lawyer at the time was Brian Friedman. Brian Friedman also represents Justin Baldoni. And there was audio that was leaked that also featured Jed Wallace. If you watch my initial coverage of the It Ends With Us, these are all familiar names. Jed Wallace was the guy who was the digital fixer, who Blake Lively accused of engineering the AstroTurfing campaign against her. There was audio leaked where he was talking to a publicist called Melissa Nathan and saying that they have to connect this producer, Amanda Ghost, to, quote, something really heavy, like sex trafficking, like being a madam or a pimp. So considering that's what the website says, that seems a little suspicious. The current trial also presented evidence that the text of the website, what was actually going to be written on the website, was submitted to Nathan's PR firm under the name Camp Sugar, which is also Rebel Wilson's production company. So that's also a tie, but not necessarily proof that Rebel Wilson herself knew exactly what was going on. Now, Melissa Nathan, if that name sounds familiar, it's because Nathan and her PR firm, TAG, were also accused by Blake Lively of conducting a smear campaign against her on behalf of Justin Baldoni. Wilson denies having anything to do with the website. However, there were texts that were uncovered in the Lively Baldoni case that actually came into play here. So in discovery for the Blake Lively case, they found these texts between Melissa Nathan and people around this whole Rebel Wilson thing. And the text basically said, somebody texting Melissa Nathan saying, quote, Rebel, she wants a really harsh website against Amanda, the producer. So it's not Rebel Wilson saying she wanted it, but there are texts saying, attributing the desire for this to her, saying that, no, this is what she wants. It even floated the strategy, the whole Madam strategy. Melissa Nathan, by the way, despite these texts, has denied that she was responsible for the site. So this website, nobody has responsibility, even though there are texts and voicemails and everything else connecting a bunch of people to the creation of this site and to the text of this site and to the theorizing about what it could say, which is what it actually said. Everybody denies responsibility. I didn't do it. I don't care if you have a text saying that I did it. I didn't do it. So Charlotte McGinnis's defamation suit against Rebel Wilson is currently happening in Australia. And this is what I think is such a bizarre situation. So Rebel Wilson comes out to defend her lead actress in her movie um, from this situation that she said she was made to feel uncomfortable in. That same actress is now suing Rebel Wilson for speaking out against her because Rebel Wilson said that, well, she's lying, and she actually did that. It's this is crazy because it's not just that somebody's bending the truth. There is one party or the other that is lying in such a huge way that it's you can't. I don't think you can even find a middle ground. Either the whole thing is true, and this actress absolutely did recant what she told Rebel Wilson. To be fair, there's not much evidence that presented thus far that happened. I think Rebel Wilson's attorneys are going to get their turn later this week, or Rebel Wilson was absolutely behind this whole website thing, and accusing the producer of doing all of this stuff. And she's been absolutely bold-faced lying about it from the very beginning, which is, I think there's more evidence in favor of that. But again, right now, the opposing side is presenting evidence, so more stuff might come out. What Rebel Wilson's lawyers are saying right now is that the whole website thing and who's behind it and who actually did it is just a distraction. It doesn't really matter to the case, because what actually matters is, was this claim made, and did this actress retract her claim? Because that's really what the defamation suit is about. The defamation suit is about Rebel Wilson said that I retracted a claim for fame and money, that I basically sold myself out. And that was defamatory to my character, and it made me feel betrayed and paranoid, and you're making stuff up. That is the crux of the lawsuit. So it could even be that this website stuff doesn't really matter. But that to me is like banana pants crazy. Like, that is bonk. The site is crazy. What it says is crazy. If none of it is true, it's absolutely nuts. If it is, if it is absolutely true, that's maybe even more nuts. But the fact that this has all been blowing up and it didn't even hit my radar until this week, you may not even care. You may have tuned out. This whole last, 12 minutes may have just been a waste for you. But it was nuts to me that, number one, this was even happening and I didn't really know what was going on. And number two, the sheer amount of linkage to the whole Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively thing. I mean, the same PR firm, the same lawyer, the same digital fixer who keep coming up in these documents. And the fact that it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Sony hack, where like the hack was bad, and then the things they found out about in the hack led to other things, because there was evidence in this trial that surfaced only because people were digging into the other thing, and it blew back onto this one. It would be odd if there was a PR firm that was accused of doing at the same time two very substantially similar things online, that they were completely, despite evidence to the contrary, innocent of both of those things. But this is, I'm going to watch this every day now to see what happens. I guess they're live streaming the trial on YouTube. I'm not going to become one of those legal channels that, every day. I probably do better than I'm doing, but this is not really what I want to do. But this is something that I am going to follow, because this is just a cuckoo story. And if it is proven that Rebel Wilson is lying, I'm not saying she is, if it is proven that she is lying, if they can actually say, like, no, you did this and we have proof that you did it, the sheer amount of just straight-faced, no, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. What are you talking about? That would be reputationally bad for her, I think. If we don't end up in that direction, I think it'll probably blow over. Like I said, I think that the evidence so far kind of doesn't look great for Rebel Wilson, but I haven't seen the other side of the case yet, so I'm not going to say, oh, she definitely did it. But it certainly looks like she may have, but that's what the job is of the opposing counsel, is to make the other person look like they definitely did it, and then you get the chance to rebut that evidence. So we'll see. The movie, by the way, the Deb, has just gotten completely lost in the shuffle. It was released in Australia and New Zealand. It played at Toronto, I think, in 2024. It was released in Australia and New Zealand. It actually got pretty good reviews. I looked them up. I mean, they're not middling reviews. They're pretty decent reviews, but it has no current U.S. distribution. I would imagine it probably won't until this case is over. And if it goes really bad, I can't imagine that it would maybe ever come out here unless one of the smaller distributors took it on. But the movie's been totally lost in the shuffle. I saw a lot of the crew were actually really upset by it, because apparently, by all accounts, the shooting of the film itself, prior to all of this blowing up, was apparently a very good experience. everybody said they had a good experience, a good time shooting the film, that they were proud of the work that they did, and now it's just completely been blown off the screen. But I guess when it did come out in Australia and New Zealand, it got good reviews. But that's not going to be the first thing that, just like it ends with us now, that's never going to be the quality of the film is never going to be the first thing that comes up when people talk about this film or Rebel Wilson, it's always going to be this case. And it's just, I don't know. For me, reading it, I'm just like, this is a kooky case. This is a nutso case. So, yeah, I'm just looking here. Let's see. Rebel Wilson will have to flee to Australia if this is remotely true. I think she might already be there. I know she's there now because she's on a trial. That's old news. I acknowledge that it's old news. I told you I just got caught up with it. What do you want me to do? I found it interesting. If you're not interested, go watch something else. Sorry. It's just, I said that it was old news, but I think it's interesting. And I would imagine that, if you're not interested, if no one's interested, that's fine. I just thought it was really kind of interesting and kooky and weird. If nobody cares, whatever, I'll skip ahead. Let's get to your questions. Let's see what you want to talk about. Let's see what we've got coming in from everybody. We had some stuff coming in from before the show, so let's turn the show to something you might be more interested in. This is from Svenis97, who says, "Hey Dan, since it's always charting in top 5 internationally, have you watched any Detective Conan movies? It's one of my favorite anime. Love your work, Dan." I have not. I know that it's put out a movie every year for like the last 30 years or so, but I think that's kind of part of it, is like it's so daunting and imposing that I wouldn't even know where to start. But no, I haven't. I do know that it's very very popular in Japan. Al109 says, "What is a movie from the 2020s that you liked but everyone else didn't?" For me, it'd be The Flash or Renfield. I mean, The Flash is one of those. I didn't love The Flash. I liked it. It definitely had major flaws, but I certainly didn't hate it. And I was way, way more positive on the movie than everybody else. I'm trying to think if there's another like bigger example of one that I was just like, I really like that movie, and nobody else did. But The Flash is one that comes to mind. But before that would be, it's in the late 2010s, but Venom was a big one for me, which is like everyone seemed to hate that movie, and I liked it more than I liked The Flash. I didn't love it, but I liked it more than I liked The Flash. On the opposite side, a movie you disliked but others liked, mine would be Send Help or the first Mario movie. I mean, I think that there's plenty of people that dislike the first Mario movie. Let's see. One that I disliked but that others liked. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Superman last summer. I still hear from people. I still get comments about Superman, about me not liking it, and I don't know what to tell you. I just wasn't a huge fan. Joe O'Keefe 2083 says, "All the love from Dublin, Ireland." Thank you, Joe. That's part of my family's from Ireland, so I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Zach Likes Movie 72 says, "Have you been seeing the scary movie posters being released, like the 420 Midsummer riff or the Michael one?" Incredible marketing, in my opinion. I haven't seen the posters. I will say they put out a trailer today, I think, that was sort of like a teaser that was tied around like a Michael Jackson theme with Kenan Thompson playing Michael Jackson, and aggressively unfunny to me, which does not make me happy, because I actually really would love for this to be a very funny movie. But this particular Michael Jackson, like the whole Michael Jackson riff to me was not funny at all. It didn't even make me chuckle. It was just like, oh God, I hope the whole movie's not like this. So maybe they just did that as a special thing. I don't know. Christopher Brickner 5181 says, "Last week I asked, what is this generation Star Wars? I meant, what Star Wars media will generation most connect to? Disney never fully consolidated around the sequels. There's a lot to choose from." I mean, I don't know. I never in a million years thought that the generation kind of below me, and not even the whole generation, but like, the people 5 to 10 plus years younger than me would connect to the prequels as much as they did. Because it just, when I heard how much love there was for the prequels, considering what the opinion was of them at the time that they came out. And I wasn't, I was in my late teens to early 20s when the prequels came out. So it's not like I was in my 30s or anything. I was shocked at how much love there is for the prequels. So it could very well be that this generation Star Wars media is the sequels, that in 5 or 10 years, there will be a generation that grew up with those movies that revere them in the way that people grew to revere the prequels. I think that's entirely possible. the idea of trying to guess what a generation is going to connect to, nobody's ever really been able to do that. I mean, there are classics now that were completely ignored when they came out, and there were classics that used to be classics that nobody even knows about. But given what happened to the prequels, I don't think it's too late to say it couldn't be the sequels. It's just there's so much of it now. There's so much Star Wars. I think one of the reasons that the prequels and the original trilogy endured was that there was much less Star Wars to sort of attach to. Now that you have so much, is there going to be any one thing that the next generation attaches to? I think that's entirely possible as well. Lucas White 3284 says, ever consider a Survivor-centric video or rankings? Surreal for my favorite YouTuber to talk about my favorite show. Have you liked 50s boot order? I haven't. No, I don't know if I've considered anything specific to Survivor. Part of it is, I watched probably the first, let's see, it came on in the 2000 for the first time. I'd say I probably watched it for 15 years every season, just about. And then I took some time off. So I'd say there's probably, out of 50 seasons, there's maybe 10 or 15 that I haven't seen at all, particularly a lot of the new era stuff, season 40 on. So for me to do anything from an informed perspective, I'd have to, first of all, watch a lot of seasons I've never watched before. And then I think I'd have to rewatch stuff because there's stuff, I mean, I've never rewatched a season of Survivor. So we're talking about shows that were 20 years old now, 25 years old, that I'd never seen except for that first time. And so I feel like I need to be kind of in a more informed perspective. So it would really involve watching Survivor nonstop for a while. And I just don't think that I have the bandwidth to do that. How have I liked season 50's boot order? I feel like we're just now getting to the gameplay part of the show, which is what I like the most about Survivor. The gameplay, the alliances. Are you going to lie? Are you not going to lie? They did something like 25 players in 29, like they only give them 29 days or something to play this time. So you have like 25 people that are all going to get eliminated within 29 days, which means that you have to boot multiple people multiple times. And for me, the whole first half of the season has been gimmicks. There'll be an alliance that's kind of going. I'm like, oh yeah, this, Colby's positioning himself well in this alliance. And then it's like, it's time for the blood moon. You're going to be randomly assigned to 3 tribes, and each one of those is going to go to tribal council. Well, okay. Then all of the alliance stuff that's been built up and all of the trust and all of the gameplay didn't matter, because now it's just 3 random groups that each have to vote out one person. Well, then all the gameplay that those people did is out the window. So what was the point of the whole first, 5 or 6 episodes? Last week's show with the doubles going out was a little less random to me, but still it was just like another twist. Jeff Probst gets so excited about his twist. It's like, I got another twist for you. It's just like and I think I said this last week, it's one of the reasons I stopped watching the show regularly. It's become a show about twists and not a show about gameplay. Now it feels like they're finally getting to the gameplay, but I would have liked to have seen that from the beginning, because I think that there's some people that got screwed over because they're like, tribes are getting shipped. We're 9 days in, we're shaking the tribes up. Why? And the other thing is, and I'll get off Survivor after this, Jeff Probst is hiding behind this thing of like, we asked the fans if they wanted twists and they said yes. And so now we're doing the Blood Moon brought to you by Applebee's. And basically because the fans said, well, yes, we like twists in the game. Survivor's like, great. Then we're going to come up with the biggest, craziest twists of all time. That's not necessarily, and they'll say, well, the fans wanted it. Like, I don't think that's necessarily what the fans voted for. I think you're using that as cover to just do what you want. But I think if you would have asked the fans specifically, do you want this specific twist? They would have said no. That could totally ruin the flow of the game. So I think they're hiding behind the fans a little bit. And Billie Eilish for some reason. And apparently Mr. Beast, who's going to be on the show this season. I don't know. David B. DeBomb says, saw the Leviticus trailer, been my most anticipated movie since you covered it from Sundance. Love the concept. Did you like the trailer? I actually didn't watch the trailer because I like the movie so much. So I would be curious. I haven't seen it. I'm curious to check it out, though, because I wonder how much it gave away or if it represented the movie, what I think is properly. But I hope people like the movie because it was one of my favorites at Sundance. Eduardo Landa 2289 says, what wrong lesson will execs get from Project Hail Mary? Ooh, I love trying to figure that out. What wrong lesson? The first one would be to greenlight endless amounts of Project Hail Mary knockoffs, or like, oh, space movie. That's why people liked it. They liked it because it was a space movie. So we're going to make a space movie, and then it'll have the same garbage script that every other movie that sucked in the last 10 years has had, because execs never take the lesson that what people liked was the writing and the characters and the fact that people cared about what was on screen. They're like, what space? That's why. It's space. It's space. That why. Yes, I do believe executives talk like cavemen. So I think that the wrong lesson that probably executives will take from it is to put the same amount of energy that most executives put into scripts for big movies, which is next to none, and instead just be like, they want space. No, we want good characters and good people that we care about. That's what we want. Dylan Fitzsimon's 2278 says, favorite Sam Raimi film? Probably Evil Dead 2, I'd say. I love the first two Spider-Man movies. There's a lot of Sam Raimi movies that I like, but I'd say probably Evil Dead 2. I just love that. It's just filmmaking at its finest. Black Bag V says, oh, see, I don't like frogs and toads, which I've said on the air, and like this is how much I viscerally makes me uncomfortable. It says, Dan, please rank moist squishy frogs, thick bulbous toads, slick slimy salamanders, and oh my god, what have I done? Someone stop me. This is gross. I know you didn't even know that this was going to be my react. Like I have a physical discomfort reaction to reading that, because those images in my head make me like I don't know if you can tell, but like tense up. It's just like when I say I'm afraid of frog, it's not me just saying like oh, I don't like them. It's me saying like I have an intense physical reaction to it, like a palpable physical reaction to it. So like even reading that is just like So no offense, we're gonna move on, because it's just I don't even in my head it just isn't. I don't like it. Roman Borowinski says, hi, Dan. What are your thoughts on Marvel re-releasing Avengers Endgame with extra scenes that tie to Doomsday? I mean, it's a great way to increase the box office results of Avengers Endgame. You know what? Actually, I'm curious. I want to check something real quick. Worldwide, no, all-time. So the all-time worldwide gross is held by Avatar. Avatar did a re-release that put it back as the number one grossing movie of all time worldwide. It's $124 million ahead of Avengers Endgame. So I think that it's a way for Marvel to hype up Endgame, number one, which is great. Number two, I think that they want to take that record back from Avatar so that they can say, going into Avengers Doomsday, hey, Avengers Endgame retook the number one record all time worldwide. So we're back on top. So I think it's a combination of hyping up Doomsday, which makes sense. And I think they also maybe want to take that record back from Avatar. Bailey Hartrick says, apologies if you've answered this before, but any chance you'll review season 2 of Daredevil Born Again? It's surprisingly some dang good TV. I haven't even really started watching it. So I'd say probably doubtful. I'll probably watch it at some point, but I don't know if I'll do a review of it. Ferris EB says, I know you don't have a ton of free time, but do you watch live theater at all? If so, are there any shows, genres, or playwrights, composers you like? I do like live theater. I love going to New York. If I'm in New York for any measurable amount of time, I try to go see at least one show. Last year, I saw two. I went, my mom and I actually went and saw Glengarry Glen Ross and Wicked, which I'd never seen on stage before. I love live theater. I adore it. I mean, that's really what I spent the bulk of my time on in high school. I was in TV production, which is where I learned to edit and do all that stuff. But most of my extracurricular time was doing drama technical theater, and we had a great theater department in my high school growing up, and so we put on a big musical every year. We did a play during the fall. I love live theater. Are there any shows, genres, or playwrights or composers that I like? Les Miserables has always been my favorite musical, I think, especially if you get a good company performing it live. I love Phantom of the Opera. If you get a really good company, if you've got a good Phantom and a good Christine, then I think that you're in for a great show. The Producers is a great show. I saw it with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick in its original run, and it was fantastic. I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot. Hamilton, I've never seen live, but I've seen the Disney version. I thought that was a fantastic show. Yeah, I generally love live theater. Because you'll never see a performance like that one again. It's the same show, but you will never see a performance that is second for second, word for word, breath for breath, note for note like it again. And there's that unpredictability and that the fact that you're together with this group of people, no audience will ever be in that moment again, seeing this again, except for this audience this night. I love live theater. Dylan Fitzsimons 2278 says buffalo wings or barbecue ribs. Depends on the occasion, honestly. I would say if I'm going to sit down and have lunch somewhere, let's say wings and ribs are on the menu, I'll probably go for wings more often than not. But like at a barbecue, barbecue ribs all day. It just kind of depends on the situation and the company. I mean, if I'm eating with people that are like in a more professional setting, I don't want rib hands, but they're both great. I got Wheels 18 says, hi, Dan. Thoughts on watching quote unquote bad movies? I genuinely enjoy riffing on bad movies, but I've been chastised for it and told it's a waste of time when there's a lot of good movies. Is there truth to that? No. I don't know who's chastising you for watching bad movies. And I've said this before on the channel. You can learn as much from watching a bad movie as you can from watching a good movie. What not to do, the bold attempt at something that absolutely failed. And you're right, it's just fun. It's not, objectively speaking, it is more fun to watch The Room with a bunch of friends or even alone and laugh at it than to sit and watch, Sunrise. That's not to say that The Room is a better movie than Sunrise or is more pivotal than Sunrise. But you can't just watch all great serious movies all the time. I think that's making your fandom very one-sided. There is a lot of joy to be derived from watching a bad movie, especially one that is like confidently bad. Like it's not just kind of phoned in, but is somebody trying their absolute best to make one of the greatest movies of all time. Those are the best bad movies. I have so much of my enjoyment of film and so many of my best memories have come from watching bad movies, because sometimes they just get so ludicrous that you laugh, and it's enjoyable in that way. I mean, watching movies is about experiencing the full gamut of emotions. And that includes the ridiculousness of a bad film. So I don't know who's chastising you for having a good time watching bad movies, but in my opinion, they're absolutely wrong, and they need to learn to have more fun. You should watch the classics. Absolutely, you should. You should watch the great movies of all time. You should make a list and make sure that you scratch off as many as you can. But to say that to watch anything other than that is a waste of time, I fundamentally disagree. I think that art and movies and everything is about connection, and that connection can be, hey, this movie's great, and that connection can also be, this movie's a terrible piece of garbage, and I'm going to enjoy watching it with people that I love or strangers that I don't know in a theater. That is just as legitimate. So I heavily disagree with whoever's chastising you, and I say you keep doing what you're doing. Sartsapan says, what do you think about Steven Soderbergh confessing to using AI for the Christophers, his John Lennon doc and beyond? Will there be any repercussions? I was disappointed. It's not even that Steven Soderbergh said that he was using AI a little bit. I mean, he said, I'm fully embracing it. I'm using it to do things that people, like human beings, would do. And it's becoming an arsenal in my tool chest as a main tool. I mean, Steven Soderbergh has always been sort of willing to experiment with things. So I guess I'm not shocked that he would want to look into this corner of filmmaking, which is presenting opportunities and a chance to do new things. And he said, well, I want to make this movie and I couldn't make it unless I use AI. Okay. But it doesn't seem to me that I get, as an artist, he's very wrapped up in the possibilities for him as a creator and what it can mean to achieve his vision. But it feels like to me he may not have fully be considering the detrimental impact that it would have, not only on his productions but on other productions, should his use of it open the door to other people to do it. I think he's being a little short-sighted, in my opinion. Dylan Fitzsimons 2278 says, question inspired by the Colbert questionnaire. What is the best sandwich? Well, I guess it always depends on your definition of a sandwich. I think if you consider a hamburger a sandwich, and I don't know why you wouldn't, then I would say it's a hamburger because it's so versatile and it's delicious. I love a good hamburger. If you don't consider a hamburger a sandwich, I would say I enjoy sandwiches all the time, but the sandwich that gives me the most pleasure when I'm in the mood for it, when I'm really like hankering for a sandwich, is a good ham and cheese sandwich from a diner, and not a fancy diner. Anything above $12 does not qualify for this. Well, I guess that might be old economy. Anything above, let's say, $15 does not qualify for this exemption. A good melty diner ham and cheese sandwich with some thick cut ham when I am really craving it. Used to be either not so much anymore, but when I was in my younger days, either at the end of a late night or the morning after a late night. Nothing better in the world. I love a well-made ham and cheese sandwich. Sam H 6845 says, "What movies would make you want to fly out to see an early release, not just driving off?" Also, I had your same top 5 for your summer predictions. Oh, that's awesome. Hopefully we both do well. What would make me fly out to see an early release? So basically, like, if they said you could only see this in California, so you can only see it if you want to fly. I mean, it would have to be something. Assuming that I'm paying my own way, just financially, it would have to make sense for me, or it would have to be enough of one that I would be like, "Oh, um, yeah, it's definitely gonna be worth the investment for me." I would love to see Dune Part 3 on 70 millimeter, and if I had a chance to do that, that involved travel that I couldn't get anywhere else, then I might consider it, especially if it kind of coincided with something else I could do. Let's say in LA, there's always friends I could see or do movie fights again or something while I'm in town. Maybe the Odyssey for the same reason. If I had the chance to, it would really have to be an experience that I couldn't get anywhere else. So if it was like, hey, we're doing a premiere, it's going to be on 70 millimeter, or it's going to be in this format that you cannot literally see anywhere else, and it's early enough that you're going to be in that first rush of reviews, so you do get a little bit of financial incentive by seeing it early, being one of the first critics that can see it. They can have your review out when the embargo's up, but also that you get to see it in a format that you couldn't see elsewhere. That might tempt me. So it'd have to be a combination of getting there early enough financially so that it benefited the channel, and also getting to see it in a way that I couldn't see anywhere else. A Holbert artist says, thoughts on Marvel firing the majority of their VFX team when Doomsday still has at least 7 months of post-production left. So I would have to look that up. From what I read, who Marvel fired wasn't their VFX team. It was their conceptual artists, meaning not necessarily the people doing digital effects, but the people that were doing the imagination and the pre-production. I could be wrong. Full disclosure, that's just based off of the article that I read. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But as I understood it, those were the visual artists that were laid off, not necessarily on VFX. But if it were VFX, it wouldn't surprise me. Disney's never really seemed to value their effects artists, despite the fact that they are crucial to the company's success. I don't understand it. Dylan Fitzsimons 2278 says Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame. Right after they came out, I would say Endgame, but it's now been what, 6 years almost? 7. Wow, 7 years since Endgame came out, and 8 since Avengers Infinity War came out, and I haven't watched either of them. I think since roughly within a year of when they were released. So I would like to rewatch them because I think it would come down to how well does Endgame hold up. I think I have no doubt that I would still enjoy both movies. My initial rush is to say Endgame based on my memories, but I think maybe if I rewatch them, Infinity War could edge it out because it's pretty close, and Infinity War is a really good movie. Psychonaut says, "Hey Dan, saw Leviticus a few weeks back at the New York premiere, and I really enjoyed it. Speaking of New York, any chance you'll come back for another live show?" Yeah, I love doing live shows. I did one with Christian, I think 2 years ago in New York, and I'd love to come back again. It's all about availability. If somebody wants me to come out there to do it, and just whether it makes sense financially. But there are no plans, but there's an absolute chance, because if someone were able to put that together, I'd be there in a second. I love New York. Zach Goff 7796 says, "Hi Dan, have you checked out the new Boys season yet? And is it just me, or has the quality and writing gone way downhill since season 1?" I've seen the first episode of the new season of The Boys, and I may actually catch up tonight a little bit. I mean, I think I've mentioned it before. I think the quality has gone down, and the writing quality has gone down since before this season. I can only comment on the first episode of this newest season, but particularly the last season, I felt like everything that it was sort of parodying in what I thought was a very, if not subtle, but clever way in this first season is just so on the nose now. And there were some character choices that were made in the last season that I didn't really like. Just as far as how they treated Huey in particular and how they treated certain subject matters. So I will agree that I think it was the previous season to this one was not written anywhere close to as well as I'd come to expect from the show. I didn't hate it. It just wasn't as well written, and I can't really say much about the current season. Why would you name Trump Epstein 2028? Want to see Adam McKay tackle the Strait of Hormuz? I don't know why any of that's there, but no. Shoja RB3PG says, rank your favorite top 10 favorite ranking questions ever. I'll have to think about that. I'll get back to you. Geek Factor says, hi, Dan. I'm going through a divorce now. It's fresh and it still feels tough. We have 3 kids, which makes it worse. Watching stuff is helping me through it. Thank you. I wish I could have done the same for you. Well, first of all, I'm very sorry to hear that. Obviously that is something that I unfortunately have some experience with, and there were no kids involved. We had a couple of pets, but there were no kids involved. I know that makes it 10. I can only imagine. I don't know. I can only imagine that it makes it 10 times tougher. And I'm really sorry to hear that. It's just never an easy thing. I know that I was looking for escape a lot during that time for me, and I found it through some games and some Godzilla movies and YouTube stuff. So I'm happy that I could help you kind of get through that moment. But I'm very sorry to hear that, and best wishes going forward, because I just know it's not, regardless of reason or intent. And I don't know the reason or intention. Regardless, it's not easy. So I'm sorry, and I hope things turn up for you. Agent Gooby E says, sorry if this was asked before, how do you decide which language poster you use for each movie on charts? Is there a system or is it mostly arbitrary? Well, I mean, domestically, obviously, I'll use the US poster. For the international charts, there are usually not a whole lot of options for me. There's usually at least one international option available. So if there's only one, like, for example, if there's an Avengers movie and the only international poster I can get in good quality is, let's say, from China, then that's the one that I'll use. If there are multiple posters, then I'll usually pick the one with the design that I like the most. And if there are multiple posters that have the same design in multiple languages, then I'll try to maybe pick a language that I haven't used. So, for example, I don't want every poster in the international box office chart to be the Chinese poster. So if there's a good one from France, or if there's a good one from Thailand or Vietnam or wherever, Czech Republic, it just depends on which posters are uploaded. Then I use that one. So I do try to kind of mix it up when I have an option, but sometimes I just don't have that option. Josh D. Gibson says, I like your Why I Love videos, and I vaguely remember an SJU episode where you talked about the connecting things between the Cornetto trilogy. Ever thought about a Why I Love the Cornetto trilogy? Wow, an SJU episode. That's going way back. I do like the Cornetto trilogy a lot. And I think my first video, I said I was going to go into The World's End and why I love that movie so much. And the reason I didn't do that then, and why I kind of haven't done it now, is because the first Why I Love video is Why I Love Jaws. And I had, and believe it or not, 6 years later, am still having copyright problems with Universal on that, because that video still gets claimed probably once a year by Universal, which means that they take all of the ad revenue from it. And I have gone through the dispute process 5 or 6 times probably on that Jaws video, and I still have to do it once a year. I brought it up to the people I can bring it up to. They won't do anything. So the reason I didn't do The World's End right then is because that's also, at least here in the US, a Universal movie. And I don't want to deal with the copyright hassle, because it's not like a review, even though Universal started claiming reviews even when you use trailer clips. But the Why I Love series requires a healthy amount of footage from the movie to be included, because I want to make a point about this line of dialogue or this acting moment that I really like. And it really is blunted if I can't use footage from the film. So I have not done The World's End video, and it would probably be the same excuse me, for the Cornetto trilogy because Universal abuses the copyright system here on YouTube so much. And as much as I love the movie, I also want to make sure not only am I able to collect ad revenue for the video, I want to make sure the video is in a form that makes it optimal for a video essay. And if you can't use clips from the movie, what are you going to do? So the copyright, I hate the copyright system on YouTube, but that's neither here nor there. Z Jacob Ball says, "Hey Dan, honestly, this has been the worst month of my life, but I just wanted to thank you for being some much needed escape from all that's going on." Geez, I'm sorry for you too. A lot of people seem to be having a really tough time right now, and I'm sorry to hear that. And like I said, I know what a worst month of your life can feel like. So that's one of the reasons why, quite frankly, when people say, "Why don't you talk about the real world stuff more on the channel?" And I do from time to time, but I say, I think that there is a function to these videos that people can use to sort of get away from all of that stuff. And I know that movies in the grand scheme of things aren't that important compared to everything that's going on right now. And I would never argue that they are, but if this channel is a place where I can talk about that stuff and maybe it does provide an escape for 30 minutes or an hour, I don't think that that's being ignorant or cavalier about the real world. I think it's just providing a function inside of the real world that people can use, and I'm honored that what I do is able to provide that for you, and I hope you get better. And I know a lot of people are having a really tough time right now. Plethora 1C says, "Hey Dan, what do you think is the ceiling for movies like Supergirl and Clayface? They seem like movies for a certain niche audience." The ceiling, I mean, I don't see either one of them being billion-dollar movies, but I think if Supergirl is as good as, let's say, Wonder Woman, if it gets the same response, I think that it could have a similar ceiling, $700-800 million. I think it also has a pretty low floor if it's not very good, because I don't think people are that loyal to the character yet. And if it just really doesn't connect with audiences, I think it could go pretty low. Clayface, I did see the teaser for that earlier today, and I think that looks really cool. I'd say that's got a potentially pretty high ceiling because, a DC horror film coming out right around Halloween. I mean, I could see that having and when I say $700-800 million for Supergirl, by the way, I mean worldwide, not domestic. And Clayface, I could see that being $100 million. If it's great, I could see that being $100 million domestic film, which I maybe wouldn't have said before, but there's a really strong teaser trailer that they put out today. Limber Lad says, "If this is too spicy to touch, feel free to overlook this one. The PR firm that was hired by Wilson and Baldoni was also hired by Depp during his trial with Amber Heard." Yeah, I mean, I think in my coverage of It Ends With Us and that whole thing, I mentioned that was also Johnny Depp's publicist, and it's like, the whole crisis PR world is just, ugh. I'm glad I did not choose that as my profession. Firo Hero says, "Hi Dan, have you seen the TV show Slow Horses? If not, it is highly recommended by me." It is highly recommended by a lot of people. I've heard great things about Slow Horses. I have not seen it. I do love Gary Oldman. It goes on my never ending list of things to watch, especially stuff on Apple TV. Pezman077 says, "Why would a big blockbuster movie need to make a big promotion at CinemaCon? Do they really need to convince theater owners to show their movie?" Yeah. I think that they want to get theater owners excited about the slate that's coming up, because we're seeing it with Doomsday and Dune Part 3. With Dune, there's a contractual obligation for IMAX screens, as there is for a lot of IMAX movies, but not all movies that are in IMAX. And so there is competition for which movies are going to get booked in how many theaters. How many theaters am I going to give X movie on opening weekend? Some movies have contractual obligations and some movies don't. And it's not always just the big blockbusters that get advertised at CinemaCon. Each studio does presentations. They do smaller movies along with their bigger movies. But generally, yeah, they want to get theater owners excited, and they want to get them hyped up about the movie and pumped up and thinking it's going to be great, because they want those theater owners to give their movies the maximum amount of screens in their theaters to maximize profitability. So, yeah, I think it does serve them to get theater owners excited about their slate, about the studio, about specific movies, because they want owners to be hyped enough to really go and support the film and give it all the resources that they possibly can, because there is some competition. Black Bag V says, Dan, I'm so sorry for the amphibian question. I understand. I wasn't attacking you necessarily. It was just sort of like an example of the visceral effect that has on me. You're good. Gavin Dean 7594 says, I personally know many people who are going to wait until Mandalorian and Grogu arrives to streaming, and honestly, I don't blame them. The marketing still hasn't justified the jump to the big screen. Yeah, I mean, I think the Mandalorian, especially because it is already a streaming show, is subject to potentially a lot of people doing that, saying, well, I watched the Mandalorian at home. Why would I go watch it in the theater? That's a good question. I have big question marks around how the Mandalorian and Grogu is going to do, and if you look at my summer movie list, I didn't put it up that high for that reason. I think there are a lot of question marks. Firo Hero says, "Hi Dan, I've never seen you talk about the movie Seven. It's not even in your collection. I'm just curious about your thoughts on this movie. Is it not? Hang on, I'm going to look it up. I like Seven. I've seen it. I've seen it several times. I think it's really good. It's a really great thriller. It's a great filmmaking, great cinematography. I would actually be no, I guess I don't. That's surprising. I thought that I did own Seven, but I don't. There's no reason why I don't own it, other than maybe it just was never at an affordable price for me. What I consider to be affordable. I like Seven. I think it's really good. It's a good thriller. It's a good crime movie. It's got a heck of an ending. Great early Fincher. So yeah, I enjoy it. I thought I had it, honestly. I thought I did own it. I may have been waiting for like the new version to come out because they just remastered it, and then I may be waiting for that version to come down in price. But I like Seven. Manuel Retta 1029 says, "What do you use for editing YouTube videos?" I cut on Adobe Premiere for video editing. I use Photoshop for my graphics, some of my graphics. I do some of my graphics now using Canva. I design in Canva. Some of them, not all, most of them are still on Photoshop. But editing, I use Adobe Premiere. And I have since probably 2015 or 2016, which is when we switched over. I think it's 2015, maybe even 2014, which is when we switched over over at Screen Junkies from Final Cut to Premiere. Johnny Mashed Potatoes says, where do you suggest someone start if they're looking for high quality indie movies? I guess it kind of depends on what era you want to start. I mean, when you say indie movies, are we talking about the sort of indie resurgence of the 90s, or are we talking about indie movies right now? If we're talking about the best indie movies right now, I mean, Neon and A24 are making, I think, a lot of the best ones, and probably for the last 10 years or so have been making the best indie movies around. So I would say go through their catalog and find some, maybe their highest rated ones. Don't just do horror. I'd say go do a cross section. If you're talking about like indie movies starting in the 90s, the Fargo, Pulp Fiction era, I would just start with the ones that sort of broke out first, the ones that kind of broke through at the Academy Awards, Secrets and Lies, movies like that, and then maybe follow certain filmmakers down the rabbit hole. But it just kind of depends on like era specific. Where are you looking to start? But for my money right now, Neon and A24 are making the best indie movies, and they're even kind of graduating from that. You'd have to go back a little bit to find like the small micro budget, like Locke, starring Tom Hardy. I thought it's a great indie movie. That's an early A24 film. Jonathan Rios Edit says, do you have any odd movie trend pet peeves? For example, I'm not a fan of Mexico or anywhere not America being color graded extremely warm or blue. Yeah, Mexico looks orange in seemingly every movie. I think Traffic started that. I remember the first time I remember seeing that was in Traffic, Steven Soderbergh's movie before AI, and he did that because he wanted to like grade all of the different stories a different color. But it seemed like after that, every scene set in Mexico is like sepia or orange. And I think it's just a tired visual thing that it's like everything's washed out and grainy in Mexico. Come on. Any odd movie trend pet peeves? I think the Wilhelm scream is overused. It was kind of a fun in joke for a while, but now everybody knows it, and it's just a distraction. Other than that, I mean, I think that things can be used effectively if they're done in the correct way. Nothing comes to mind specifically along the lines of what you're talking about, but I generally do get annoyed when a movie does something like, for a while it was the Inception type music in every major movie. I hate when somebody does something well and then every single movie after it tries to copy it because it gets grating. I think that trailers right now are all kind of cut to the same tick 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 tick. It's very staccato, like the cutting now for a lot of trailers, especially action movie trailers, is done to the same. And I think maybe like as the John Wick movies did it to this rhythm, it's like it's sort of like that Edgar Wright style where the action and the cuts are motivated by sound effects, where a few trailers did that well. And then now I've seen that version of every trailer a million times because every trailer house is like, that trailer's great, cut me a trailer like that. And it just gets annoying and overused. I mean, it's not really necessarily a movie thing, but it's a trailer trend of just taking the same style over and over, and it makes every action movie or whatever look the same too. It dampens and makes them all look bland. So that's something right now that's kind of annoying to me. Crusader 38372 says, "Hi Dan, greetings from down under Argentina. With rewatchability from streaming and studio mergers, could there be an industry of re-releases before big openings, maybe at lower price, or would it be too much?" I mean, I think we're going that way now. I think that's the direction we're going. We've got Avengers Endgame coming out. I saw that Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick are both going to be re-released. Yeah, I think we're seeing that now, and I think we're going to see more of it. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Give audiences a chance to re-experience movies on the big screen. I may go see Top. I don't think I've ever seen Top Gun in a theater. I might go see it when it comes out. CW 2393 says, "How about that Clayface trailer? DC body horror? Yeah, I think it looks great. I'm excited." Victor Vargas 2924 says, "Favorite female directors here to help you are some of my favorites. Celine Sciamma, great. Kelly Reichardt, I've seen a couple of her movies. I really liked them. Lynn Ramsey, I'm a big fan of Lynn Ramsey. Claire Denis, Agnes Varda, Greta Gerwig, Jane Campion, and Sophia Coppola." I mean, you covered. I'm trying to think if there's any that I would put on my list that come to mind immediately that you didn't cover. I mean, Catherine Bigelow, I would put on my list. I think she still is making some interesting movies. She just doesn't make movies very often, but I think she's still making interesting movies. I didn't really like the one she did for Netflix last year, but I've liked a lot of her other movies. I mean, you covered the bases pretty well. I'm sure that there's probably one or two that I'm not thinking of in the moment, but those are all great filmmakers, and those are all movies directors that are making great, varied, current films. I mean, they're not all active, but the ones that are, yeah, that's a great list. If anything else pops in my mind, I'll try to throw it out there. All right, just a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up the show. So if you have any questions you haven't sent in, now's the time to do it. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes. Raina M says, "What's your opinion about Nebula? I think you'd be great there away from YouTube copyright issues." I have tried to reach out to Nebula, and nobody there is interested in talking to me. Nebula is, if you don't know what Nebula is, it's a video site. A lot of like video essayists have stuff on Nebula, long form videos, educational videos. Legal Eagles on Nebula. I think Lindsay Ellis maybe was on Nebula or still is on Nebula. But the thing with Nebula is it's invite only. So you can't reach out to them and say, "I'm interested in being on your platform." You have to be like referred by somebody, or they have to reach out to you. So I did foolishly, before I actually did more research, I did try to reach out to Nebula and never heard anything back. And then subsequent to that, I read some articles and stuff that's like, yeah, don't bother calling Nebula because they don't care. They'll reach out to you, or they're not interested in hearing from you. So I think it could be interesting to do stuff on Nebula, but no one has any interest in me there, and that's the only way to get in. It's a closed system. So yeah, potentially, but it's just, I get it. They don't want everybody. And unless something comes in, this is the last question. This is from Phil Smith, 5500. Then I'll try to go through the comments and see if there's anything major that I missed. "Hi, Dan. Do you think we'll get around to watching Over Your Dead Body?" Yeah, I think I will eventually. I like the trailer. I like Yorma as a director. I like The Lonely Island. So I don't know if I'll get to see it necessarily this weekend, but I definitely will see it at some point because I like the concept. I like Yorma. I like the cast, Samara Weaving and Jason Segel. So yeah, definitely. Let's see here. Nia DaCosta. That's I like a lot of Nia DaCosta's movies. I think that 28 Years Later really got hosed by what happened with the previous film. Elaine May. That's one that did not come to my mind, so that's a good one. Let's see. Those are the only other two names I saw. So in here, CW 2393, Slow Horses is so good. If you enjoy MI6 spy thrillers, bookmark it. Yeah, I love spy movies, so I definitely want to see that. Uh, what that what that is. Sorry, I'm just kind of response to my super chat. That's unfortunate. You didn't realize I was joking around with my name. I expected you to explain why you don't want to see that, given that you really liked Don't Look Up. Yeah, I mean, I didn't. It didn't really translate to me. I apologize. Sorry for that. The name threw me. I've got to be honest. When you throw a name like that around, it's going to throw people off their game. So I did not realize we were going to try to go into a bit there. Yeah, I have to admit the name threw me a little bit. I didn't know where you were coming from. I think this is referring to Disney. It's the in-house art department. They will now go to doing what most movies do and hire on a per movie basis. I think with the layoffs, that's what I thought I was reading about. Yeah, the design team for characters and whatever. Um, I'm not saying that's good. I just meant that was my understanding with the Disney layoffs, is that it wasn't necessarily VFX people. It was like the design people, the visual artists. Lucas White says, grateful for your Survivor analysis. It gets lonely being a frustrated Survivor fan who loves the game, but is constantly told by Jeff how much fans actually love the gimmicks. I still have hope, though. Yeah, I mean, the term gaslighting is overused now. People tend to use gaslighting for like lying now. Like they'll say, "Oh, they're gaslighting you." It's like, no, he's just lying to you. Like gaslighting is a very specific thing. I do feel a little bit like Jeff Probst is like kind of gaslighting Survivor fans, because they're like, Jeff, I don't like that twist, and he's like, what do you mean you don't like it? You voted for it. You said you wanted it. So of course, why would you vote for it if you didn't like it? It's like, but I didn't vote for it. It's like, yes, you did. It says right here, the fans voted for twists. So obviously you do like it. I do feel like I'm getting gaslit by Jeff Probst a little bit. Not gonna lie. I have no desire to watch Fire and Ash because I heard that despite the title, it's still more water-based, which Avatar 2 already did. I won't support false advertising. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's false advertising, but I will say it was definitely very similar to Avatar 2, I thought. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to grab comments and also hope that they're in some kind of context. Galactic Spectre says, I really hope both Mortal Kombat 2 and Street Fighter turn out well. They both look like they're matching their respective games well. Yeah, they do. I mean, it does look like we're kind of moving away from the time where studios are running away from, the concept of their films or their games, like the source material. Like Street Fighter fully embraces Street Fighter. I think the first Mortal Kombat movie, not the 90s one, but the one that came out a few years ago, more or less embraced the spirit of Mortal Kombat. It seems like Mortal Kombat 2 even more so. I mean, that's the thing. Those games are popular for a reason. And so studios for so long were trying to take the name, but then deliver to people something that was completely not at all what they loved or what they liked about the game. And then would be like, why didn't this work? And it's like, because you didn't use anything about this thing that people actually like. You thought you could make something better and more mature and more. It's like, no, sometimes a dumb, silly game should be a dumb, silly movie. And I think that we're finally getting on the same page. It only took them, like 30 years or so? If Rebel Wilson's telling the truth, there's still a moral issue. Is it up to Rebel Wilson to go public with someone else's hugely traumatizing event? I mean, again, that's that whole situation is just absolute insanity. The issue with Scary Movie is that growing it was more a rent the films and watch on a Friday night with friends and popcorn. I think what you're saying is that Scary Movie was never really like a big theater thing. I mean, I remember when the first one came out. At least the first one was a very popular theatrical film. I saw it in the theater, and I remember at least the first two being pretty. I saw the first two in theaters. And then we'll do this as the last one. I think The Flash has some merits and isn't completely trash like people are making out to be. I would agree. I don't think it's complete garbage. It's not great, but I don't think it's complete garbage. I don't think we have anything else. Let's see. Oh, we got one more question. This will be the last question. This came in from Chemo Geo, who says, how do subscription services like A-List work financially for theaters? My Cineville card lets me visit all art house theaters around the country. This is a very commonly asked question. I'll just give you the answer that I have found out according to my research, which is that it doesn't work any differently unless specific chains have specific contracts with specific studios, which they may, but I haven't seen any evidence that that's actually happened. The subscription model does not affect the what goes to a studio from so if you bought a ticket for Avengers Doomsday through A-List, AMC doesn't pay Disney any different than if somebody just walked up to the window and bought a ticket. Again, unless there's some kind of specific agreement. So it could end up costing the theater money that way if you're a frequent user, because they're still paying the same out to studios, but they're not taking more in other than your subscription fee. What they're banking on is, number one, that you pay them $25 a month, but you don't go to the movies more than $25 worth, which is what Movie Pass kind of had banked on, but that their whole model was insane, and so it didn't work. And then number two, what they're banking on is that kind of the opposite. If you do come more often to the movies, that you will buy concessions more often, that you'll spend more money not on movie tickets, which can up their profit margins. So they kind of are either hoping that if you have a subscription to A-List or whatever, that you either don't use it very much or that you do use it a lot. And when you do, you're also buying a soda and popcorn, and they're getting, 5 popcorn and soda sales from you as a customer, when if you didn't have the A-List or Cinemark Movie Club or whatever, that they would get 2 from you. That's kind of the goal. So it's like the gym club membership or like the super user membership with concession fees. Their worst nightmare is if you are a super user and you don't buy anything at the theater, no concessions, no drinks, because then you're costing them money because they're shelling out more than what you're paying them for the subscription, but you're not giving them anything in return as far as concessions, which, by the way, you're not obligated to do. But that's just what they're hoping. AMC was able to make it work. Movie Pass, not so much. All right. That's going to be our show for today. Thank you, everybody. Maybe the Rebel Wilson story wasn't that interesting to you. It was interesting to me. I think the whole Michael Jackson thing is very interesting. Of course, I'll be tracking the whole box office results here on the channel. You can see it on Charts with Dan next week. We'll see how Michael does in his first weekend. I'm considering a few different things for review. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming out in this last half of the week. So I'll probably review something. I don't know what it's going to be, but you can stay tuned here. And of course, if anything crazy breaks, major breaking news, all that stuff, then you can stay tuned. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you watch even more videos. Hit the bell to make sure that new videos will pop up in your notification feed when I do put out something new. Thank you to everybody who sent in a question who hung out for the live show. This is a fun thing for me to do every week because I never quite know where the conversation is going to take me. Everybody stay safe. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.